Discovered, from victim to justice, incredible 24-hour transformation of a man facing racism. The sun peeked through the trees in the vibrant suburb where Marcus lived, lighting up his modest home that buzzed with laughter. His two kids, Mia and Jake, chased each other around the living room, while his wife, Lila, stirred a pot of gumbo, humming a cheerful tune that filled the air with warmth and spice. This was their routine, a daily celebration of family, a blend of love and laughter. But everything changed in an instant. "Did you hear about Marcus?" whispered a neighbor, eyes wide with disbelief. "He was attacked." That word, attacked, sent shockwaves through the community. As news of the violent incident spread, the harmony they had cultivated began to fray. A cold wind blew through the neighborhood that day, heavy with tension, as people pointed fingers, unsure of where to place the blame. While some rallied behind Marcus, others shrugged off the seriousness of the hate crime. As Marcus walked into his garage, each step felt heavier, not because of the grease on his hands or the weight of the tools he wielded, but because of the betrayal festering in his heart. He had always viewed his neighbors as friends, people he could count on. Now uncertainty clouded everything. How could his tight-knit community turn this way? His friends urged him to speak out, to rise as a voice against intolerance. But family members urged caution, advising him to forgive and let go. "We can't stir the pot, Marcus," they said, frightened of the flames that might ignite. It was like a spark in dry grass. The realization hit him: the attack was just the tip of the iceberg. As Marcus dove deeper into the web of deceit surrounding him, he found unsettling evidence. It implicated people he had laughed with, shared meals, and afternoon barbecues. The thought clenched his chest. How could he expose this truth without fracturing the fragile bonds they had? Before things could spiral further, a community meeting was announced. Marcus felt the weight of the world on his shoulders as he prepared to face his neighbors. Would they stand with him, or would they turn their backs? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Marcus took the stage that night, faces of hope mingled with those of doubt. The air was thick with uncertainty. His heart thudded loudly in his chest. It was time to confront the ghost of hatred and sadness that hung over them like a storm cloud. He took a deep breath, his voice strong yet trembling. "We are better than this, all of us," he began, looking each neighbor in the eye. "The fabric of our community is made of love, not hate." In that moment, he knew the choices ahead could reshape his family's future. A choice between silence and strength, between anger and healing. Would he be able to bridge the divide, or would the fear that shadowed his heart give way to deeper division? The crossroads loomed ahead, leaving everyone, including Marcus, anxious to see what would unfold next. Marcus glanced around the room, gauging the reactions of his neighbors. Some nodded, others looked away as if they were trying to avoid the heaviness of the moment. He could feel the weight of their unspoken thoughts pressing down on him. Would they rally behind him or retreat into silence? "Please, I'm not here to point fingers," he continued, letting the sincerity of his voice cut through the tension. "What happened to me isn't just about me. This is about us, about our community. If we don't address it together, we risk losing the love we've built." His heart raced as he spoke, the faces blurring into one indistinguishable mass. A voice broke through the murmur of doubt. "You're asking us to choose sides, Marcus." It was Tommy, someone he had known for years. The words hit Marcus like a brick. "No, Tommy, I'm asking you to choose humanity." The room went silent, the weight of his declaration hanging like a fog. The truth could feel sharp at moments like this, but solidifying his stand was the only way forward. The crowd began to shift restlessly. Some whispered among themselves, uncertainty mingling with anger. Other voices emerged in support. A woman in the back, an elderly neighbor whose name he couldn't recall, stood up. "We've got to speak out against this, for all of us." Her words were infused with conviction, and Marcus felt a flicker of hope. "We cannot let hate continue to thrive." Another neighbor added, their voice rising, catching on the ripple of momentum. Suddenly, the conversation transformed, moving from questions to declarations of unity. Marcus could see a few more faces brightening, emboldened by the shift like flowers blossoming under the sun. Yet, amongst the embrace of that warmth, doubt lingered. He couldn't ignore those who remained silent. Their expressions didn't shift, their discomfort was palpable. With every passing second, doubt clawed at Marcus's heart. The call for coming together felt like a steep hill to climb, filled with potential slips along the way. As he stepped down from the stage, a mix of relief and anxiety washed over him. "Thank you, everyone. Let us not stop this conversation here. We have work to do," he said before making his way through the crowd, anxious to return to Lila and the kids. Back at home, the familiar scent of gumbo filled the air, wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. Mia and Jake ran to greet him, laughter bubbling over as they tugged him toward the living room. Lila basked in the moment, her eyes sparkling as they exchanged smiles. But even in the warmth of his family, the echoes of the community meeting loomed large. That night, as Marcus lay in bed, the weight of responsibility settled on his chest. How would he ensure that his neighbors committed to change, not just for him, but for everyone? Could he awaken a sense of belonging greater than fear? He turned to Lila, who was half asleep beside him. "What if they turn against us? What if this only makes things worse?" Her voice, soft yet resolute, broke through his uncertainty. "You did the brave thing today. People need to hear your truth. Change won't come easy, but you can guide them." Marcus felt his heart thump steadily. They had to confront this together, without him backing down. But was he strong enough to face whatever might come next? He knew one thing for sure: this was just the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, and he would have to rally not just for himself, but for the community he loved. As he drifted into restless sleep, a thought struck him. Would he find allies where he least expected them? The dawn of a new day approached, and with it, the promise of clarity or chaos. What awaited them all at the break of day? Marcus woke to the sound of birds chirping outside, their cheerful calls a stark contrast to the storm brewing in his heart. He lay still for a moment, contemplating the day ahead. Lila was still asleep, the gentle rise and fall of her chest providing a comfort he desperately needed. After a quick breakfast with the kids, Marcus steeled himself. They chatted over fruit and toast, laughter bubbling up in the corners of the kitchen, but a part of him remained distant, lost in thoughts of yesterday's meeting. Mia and Jake were full of energy, unaware of the gravity swirling around their father's mind. "Are you going to see your friends today?" Mia asked, her large eyes full of innocence. Marcus swallowed hard, trying to muster a smile. "Yeah, something like that. Just a little meeting." "You'll be the best, Dad." Jake chimed in, bouncing in his chair. "You always make everything better." The pride in their voices sent a pang of guilt through him. What if he didn't? What if he failed them all? After breakfast, he hugged Lila goodbye and promised to call her with updates. As he stepped out into the morning sun, the warmth felt both inviting and oppressive. He recalled the faces from the meeting, that mix of fear and hope. He didn't know who would show up for him today, but felt a palpable determination to fight through it. When he reached the community center, a small crowd had already gathered. Some familiar faces, others strangers, stood in groups, whispering. His stomach twisted. He couldn't read their expressions, hope and fear seemed to dance on every face. "Marcus." It was the elderly woman from the meeting, her voice breaking through the chatter. "I'm glad you're here. A lot of us are ready to talk." He nodded, heart racing as he walked toward her. This woman felt like the anchor he needed. "How are we doing this?" Well, a few of us thought we should create a panel where we can share our stories. Open it up to everyone, you know. Not just about you, but the challenges we all face. Her eyes sparkled with determination. He took a deep breath. That could work. But should we really include everyone? He looked around at the crowd, feeling trepidation. Absolutely. She smiled. Every voice matters. We need to show that together, we can face anything. Marcus felt the waves of camaraderie wash over him. This was at the moment he hoped for. But even as he felt inspired, apprehension hung in the air. He looked around again, searching for Tommy. Would he step up? As he turned to speak to the crowd, a shift in energy caught his attention. What once felt like an open space was now filled with murmurs of discontent. What if this leads to more conflict? A voice called from the back. It's better to stay quiet. Another chimed in, echoing his concerns. Skepticism swirled around him, and Marcus could feel his heart racing again. No. He shouted, desperate to reclaim the moment. Staying silent is what got us here. We need to speak out together. The crowd grew tense, shifting uncomfortably. He locked eyes with Tommy, whose face showed uncertainty. Were they really ready to engage, or were they too scared to face the truth? I know it's frightening, Marcus continued. But if we don't face this head-on, we risk losing everything: the community, the love, the bond we share. He could see a few nods. The battle within the crowd was palpable, caught between a longing for connection and the fear of vulnerability. And then, a voice from the back broke the tension. Tommy stepped forward, hands raised. I didn't want to admit I felt it too, but I need to be a part of this. We all do. Marcus's heart swelled. One by one, other voices joined in. Maybe they could do this. Maybe they could build something powerful from the ashes of their silence. As they began to talk, urgency returned to Marcus's thoughts. How would they sustain this momentum? He needed to ensure this wasn't just a moment but a movement. But would they all remain committed when the rain clouds rolled back in? The questions chased him into the day, slipping through his fingers like sand. The real challenge loomed just ahead, and it was time to find out who was truly in it with him. The energy shifted sharply, sparking a cathartic release. Marcus could feel it in his bones. He could see glimmers of courage flickering to life among the weary crowd. If we can't do this together, how can we make it through the storms ahead? He asked, his voice gaining strength. More heads bobbed in silent agreement, hesitant yet curious. I want to share, a woman spoke up, her voice trembling only slightly. I've kept my story hidden for too long. Maybe it's time to tell it. Her admission acted like an open wound, and others couldn't help but offer their own truths. One by one, they stepped forward, sharing their fears and experiences. A middle-aged man recounted a story of discrimination he faced at the job he loved. A teenager shared his struggles with identity, feeling torn between cultures. Each confession created a tangible thread that bound them closer. Marcus felt a potent warmth rising within him, a kinship blossoming out of pure vulnerability. The words released into the air carried their collective weight. But amidst this tide of bravery was still an undercurrent of skepticism. A few remained rigid, staring into space as if afraid the truth might consume them. Something needs to change, Marcus declared, pinching the bridge of his nose to quell the nerves building again. We all deserve to be treated with respect, regardless of where we come from. This isn't just about us or them. It's about all of us. The elderly woman from before stepped beside him. Yes, right. It's time we claim our voices. Not just here in silence but everywhere at work, in our homes, even with our friends. A wave of quiet agreement swept across the crowd, but just as quickly it was interrupted by a shout from the back. But what if things get worse? What if we open this can of worms and only end up hurting more? Fear hung thick in the air. We can't let the fear of the unknown hold us back, Marcus boomed, his heart racing with each word. You don't know how strong you are until you face things head-on. Silence washed over them for a moment, and in that space, something shifted. It was as if the crowd collectively inhaled, a pregnant pause wrapping them in connection. Finally, one by one, heads nodded again. I want to help, Tommy announced, his voice cutting through the tension with unexpected clarity. I've been afraid too, but I'm ready to fight for what's right. Together, we can be a force. In that instant, Marcus felt the dam inside him break open. The potential for change wasn't merely a dream, it was tangible, sitting right here among them. Let us create a plan. A way to commit to each other and the community that needs our courage now. The discussion resumed, but now it flowed with heightened energy. Ideas bounced between them like sparks igniting an inferno. They spoke about organizing events, forming support groups, and reaching out to local leaders. Marcus felt lighter with each idea shared. However, the thought of how the community might react still loomed overhead. Doubts began to creep in again, beckoning him to step back. The fear of retaliation and backlash felt real. What if they turned against him? Yet as he glanced around at the faces, he saw resolve. He felt a spark of something unyielding within him. They wouldn't just push against the tide of apathy, they would create their own waves. But would they be able to sustain this momentum when the first stones were thrown? The question settled in the back of his mind, a nagging doubt. More importantly, could he inspire this newfound community to stand resilient even when the storms of challenge blew their way? As discussions heated up again, Marcus's heart thundered in his chest. He felt as if they were standing at the edge of a precipice. What awaited them on the other side? His gaze swept over the crowd. This was just the beginning, a stirring of purpose. But behind this fragile hope was the undeniable reality of what they could face. Let us keep this going, he encouraged, ruling out defeat. In stark contrast to those earlier moments of fear, there was determination here firmly rooted. As the planning drew to a close, a new fire ignited within each person present. They stood united against their doubts. But Marcus couldn't help but feel that this was just the first chapter of a much larger story they were about to write. Would the community rise together, or would they splinter in the face of adversity? As he made a silent promise to himself to act on their newfound courage, he couldn't shake the weight of the uncertainty still ahead. The rain clouds loomed, but what would come next, a downpour or just a refreshing shower? The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation as the crowd began to disperse, murmurs echoing their shared hopes and fears. Marcus lingered, wanting to savor the moment, but the weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on his shoulders. He caught snippets of conversations, words like together, support, and change floated like sweet whispers in the air. Tommy approached him, his face glowing with enthusiasm. I can't believe we're finally doing this. It felt good to say something, you know. Marcus nodded, feeling buoyed by Tommy's excitement. I know exactly what you mean. It's like we've tapped into something we didn't know existed. As the minutes passed, the crowd dwindled, but several faces remained, lingering like candles in the dark: the elderly woman, the middle-aged man, and a few others who were drawn in by a newfound passion. Marcus could sense their lingering fear, but he also felt their determination riding high. Why don't we meet again tomorrow? He suggested, looking around at the hopeful eyes. We can draft a more concrete plan and decide on our first steps. The elderly woman smiled warmly. I'd like that. We need to keep this energy alive. I'll bring everyone I know, Tommy promised, determination sparking in his gaze. As night began to fall, Marcus walked home with a feeling of electric anticipation. He wouldn't allow doubt to creep back in. He mustered every ounce of bravery he had left, imagining a brighter tomorrow filled with voices raised in unity. But as he turned the corner onto his street, uncertainty washed over him. What if those voices were silenced? What if the very community they aimed to support turned against them? Arriving home, he plopped down on the couch, running a hand through his hair. The soft light from the street lamp outside flickered through his window, casting shadows on the walls. He picked up his phone, contemplating whether to message Tommy about tomorrow's meeting. Instead, he sat in silence, wrestling with his doubts. The stillness was pierced by the sound of glass shattering nearby. Heart racing, Marcus leapt to his feet, rushing to the window. A small group of teenagers was laughing on the corner, one of them holding a broken bottle. Why did it feel like both chaos and camaraderie were on the same street? Suddenly, a sharp cry echoed through the darkness. His heart dropped. "Hey! Stop!" he shouted instinctively. The laughter ceased, and the group turned to him, expressions shifting from mirth to challenge. "What is it to you?" One boy sneered, stepping forward, the energy around them shifting ominously. For a moment, Marcus stood paralyzed, caught between instinct and the fear of escalation. His heart pounded loudly in his chest, reminding him of everything he had just fought for. The risk of confrontation hung heavy in the air. Just think about what you're doing," Marcus implored, forcing the words out. "Kicking up trouble won't solve anything." Their laughter returned, but it felt sharp, cold, and mocking. In that instant, he realized the stakes were higher than he ever anticipated. This wasn't just about voicing their truths, it was about facing everyday realities that could easily sow division among those striving for unity. "Mind your own business, old man," one of them shot back, stepping closer. Marcus clenched his fists, feeling the tension tighten within him like a coiling snake. He couldn't let fear win, not now. "I'm not old, I'm fighting for our community to rise above this." Each word felt like a spark, igniting something deep within. Would they listen? The leader of the group narrowed his eyes at Marcus. "What'll you do about it?" The question hung in the air, pregnant with challenge and opportunity. As Marcus stood on that precipice, he understood that he was not just a bystander anymore. Would he choose to engage and risk repercussion, or take the easy road? Time froze. The air crackled with a fierce intensity as he prepared to stand his ground, knowing full well that the next exchange could define everything they had begun. And just as a response was on the tip of his tongue, a sudden sound shattered the tension, a siren, wailing in the distance, a promise of change. Would it be rescue, or would it signal the arrival of consequences? Marcus stood, heart racing, waiting for this crucial moment to unfold. The siren wailed closer, a high-pitched scream slicing through the night. Marcus felt something shift in the energy around him, like the calm before a storm. The group of teens paused, unease flickering across their faces. It was a momentary reprieve, but Marcus knew he had to act quickly. "Listen," he called out, trying to keep his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "I'm not trying to scare you. I just want us to think about what's really going on here." He could see the boy who had stepped forward still sneering, but there was hesitation in his eyes now. "Why should we care?" Another teen scoffed. "You don't know us." "Maybe not," Marcus replied, searching for something to connect them. "But I know what it's like to feel ignored. To want to be heard. Look around you. This neighborhood deserves better, and we can be better together." The siren was nearly upon them now. Shadows of police cars began to flicker in the distance, red and blue lights reflecting off the brick walls like a warning signal. Marcus knew he had only moments to reach them, to seize this fleeting chance before everything spiraled out of control. "What we're doing," he began, but the boy who challenged him interrupted, crossing his arms defiantly. "What's in it for you? You just want to play hero?" The taunt stung. Marcus opened his mouth, but the truth he sought to convey was buried under layers of fear and doubt. He took a deep breath, his heart thumping wildly. "I want a better world," he said at last, his voice softer. "I have a daughter. And I'm scared for her. Scared of what might happen if we don't change things. I'm fighting for her right to grow up in a place where she feels safe." The group fell silent, the laughter gone. The boy's expression softened for the first time, doubt flickering in his eyes. Marcus pressed on, encouraged by their sudden stillness. You might think this is just a game, but it's not. This violence, this chaos won't lead to anything good. You all have the power to change it. It felt like time stood still as the boys exchanged glances. The siren blared louder, and a tightness coiled in the air, heavy and electric. Marcus could sense that their youthful bravado was fading, being replaced by uncertainty. Wait, do you? The tall boy began, glancing nervously at the group gathered by the corner. You really think we can change anything? In that moment, Marcus saw a flicker of hope. Yes. You can choose to be part of the solution. It starts with talking, with understanding, with listening. As tension released, the youngest boy shifted his weight, visibly hesitant as he spoke up. Like what you said earlier about together. Marcus felt a rush of relief. Exactly. Together, we can build something better. We can lift each other up, rather than tear each other down. The lights from the police cars were now blaring like a vivid sunset in the chaos of the street. The group hesitated, and even the boy who had been so defiant began to look uncertain. The siren stopped, but the moment hung suspended, as if waiting for their decision. Suddenly, he took a step back, turning toward the others. We should get out of here. Leave? The skeptical boy asked, confusion flickering across his face. Marcus nodded, voice firm. You can decide to walk away, or you can choose differently. The future is wide open. What do you really want it to be? Time seemed to freeze again, and the weight of that question rested heavily between them. As the boys stood there, poised between defiance and understanding, a set of footsteps echoed behind Marcus. He turned, heart sinking. The last thing he needed was the police witnessing this confrontation, without any resolution. Hey! You there! A deep voice boomed, echoing in the night. Panic surged. Would the moment they started to build come crashing down? Wait! Marcus shouted, desperate. Would he lose them now, just as they were beginning to see? Would he lose everything he was fighting for? The heavy footsteps approached, thumping against the pavement like a countdown. Marcus turned slightly, catching sight of a badge gleaming under the flashing lights. Fear coursed through him. This wasn't just a random encounter, this was a reckoning. He could feel the weight of their moment of understanding teetering on the brink, ready to collapse under the looming presence of authority. Stay where you are. The officer barked, hand resting on his holstered gun. Marcus' heart raced. He had to protect these boys, protect their newfound hope before it shattered. Please. Just hear me out. He called back, raising his hands as if in surrender, hoping they'd see the sincerity in his eyes. We're just talking. The officer narrowed his eyes, scanning the group. The boys were tense, shifting uncomfortably, caught in the web of a situation they hadn't asked for. Marcus took a step forward, each movement laced with the urgency of desperation. Listen, it's not what it looks like. We're trying to understand each other. One of the younger boys, barely 16, looked from Marcus to the officer like a deer caught in headlights. The skeptical boy shot a glance at Marcus, confusion still written across his face. What are you doing? He whispered, worry creeping into his voice. Marcus leaned closer, his tone low and earnest. We're at a crossroads. I don't want this to end like it usually does. He glanced back at the officer, who still hadn't moved, irritation etched into his features. The officer stepped closer, voice even now. You're breaking curfew, and I don't like the looks of this group. Step away from them. Please. Marcus shouted, his voice cracking. They need a chance. Just give us a moment. The officer hesitated, and in that brief pause, a million thoughts raced through Marcus' mind. He was grappling not only for these boys but for his own future, for his daughter's future, for the world that seemed to be spiraling into chaos. The tallest boy, now visibly anxious, spoke up. We're not doing anything wrong. A flicker of rebellion ignited in him, laughter from earlier long gone and replaced by something deeper, fear mixed with the desire for change. Yeah. Another joined in. We're just trying to talk. The officer's eyes darted between Marcus and the group, gauging the tension. You think you can just gather here and ignore the rules? Oh, but it's more than that. Marcus interjected, his voice rising with passion. We're scared. This neighborhood is scared. We want to change things, not break them. The lights from the police cars illuminated faces strained under the weight of the night's choices. Hope flickered like a candle in the breeze, teetering on the brink of being extinguished. Marcus took a step to the side, positioning himself not just as a barrier, but as a bridge to understanding, to conversations that could change the night's narrative. Then, a flicker in the officer's gaze hinted at something. Was it recognition? Empathy? Whatever it was there for the briefest moment. Back off, the officer warned again, though his voice held a quiver of uncertainty, as if he was grappling with the choice between protocol and a chance at compassion. The boy next to Marcus clenched his fists, and the air thickened with tension. The group was shifting, ready to retreat all over again, their fleeting moment of hope hanging by a thread. Please let us talk, Marcus pleaded, locking eyes with the officer. I'm fighting for their lives, for a future we can build if you just give us a chance. The officer hesitated, and in that uncertainty, Marcus caught the eye of the tallest boy. There was a spark of recognition, a silent exchange. Was it enough to break through the division? As they stood there, reality unfolded in slow motion. Could they change the trajectory of tonight with simple words? Just then, the sirens wailed in the distance, reminding them that time was slipping away. Just one chance, Marcus urged, feeling the weight of baked resentment and fear leaning against him. Would they take it, or would it slip through their fingers once again? The silence hung heavy in the air. A standoff between hope and authority. Marcus could almost hear the clock ticking, every second stretching into eternity. A mix of desperation and defiance surged through him. Those boys' futures rested on this moment. Just one breath, one heartbeat, before everything changed or stayed the same. Just one chance, Marcus repeated, softer this time, almost pleading. His heart pounded in rhythm with the sirens that seemed to echo the tension in his chest. The taller boy moved imperceptibly closer, as if somehow sensing that this was their pivotal moment. The officer's grip tightened on his gun. Marcus could tell he was wrestling with the weight of his role. You've got a lot of nerve, the officer finally said, his voice steadying as if he'd made a decision. But you're missing the bigger picture here. No. We're trying to create one. Marcus exclaimed, passion igniting in his words. We're trying to build bridges, not walls. You know how many kids grow up feeling like they don't have a voice? The officer blinked, the line of authority around him wavering for a breath. The glimmer of recognition sparked again, maybe not of him, but of their shared humanity. A moment where they could bridge the gap, if only for an instant. Look at them, Marcus urged, turning to the boys. Look at how far they've come tonight. All the risks they've taken to just be here, to share their dreams. This is more than just breaking curfew, it's about hope. One boy, whose deep-set eyes had told a story of survival, took a step forward. We understand the rules, he said, voice steadying. But if we don't speak up, we'll just keep living the same nightmare. We don't want that. The officer's jaw clenched, pained as if struggling against invisible chains that held him to a system that oftentimes felt broken. You think this is easy for me? No, Marcus replied quietly. But we can't heal until we start talking. Don't you want that? To understand what's really happening. A moment passed where it seemed like the world stood still, pulses quickening, breaths held. Even the sirens faded, replaced by the whispering wind that coursed through the empty street. The officer's eyes softened just a touch, revealing the flickers of empathy hidden behind the badge. All right, he said finally, though urgency lingered in his voice. One chance. But you need to step back and let me process this on my end. And you, he pointed at the boys, stay calm. Relief washed over Marcus like a cool rain on a hot day, but the tension had merely shifted. They had a slim opening, a brief window. Would they be able to convince him to carry their message forward? Before he could respond, another figure stepped into the light, a familiar face, one he had not expected to see. The officer took a sharper breath, visibly startled. What are you doing here? Don't you recognize me? She shot back, eyes darting between him and the group. Marcus felt his heart drop. He realized this was a relationship from the past, perhaps one that could either blow this moment open or shut it down completely. The air thickened with uncertainty again. All eyes were now on the newcomer. What did she bring with her? Would she choose to fight for understanding, or would she bring more chaos to an already tight situation? He felt the weight of all their eyes on him, especially the boys who believed in this chance. Please, Marcus breathed, knowing they were on the brink of something tremendous. They had opened a door, but would it stay ajar long enough for them to step through? He could feel a decision looming, a moment that could shift the tide. Would they have the courage to step into whatever reality awaited them? The newcomer stepped fully into the light, revealing herself as Lena, Marcus's childhood friend. A rush of memories flooded back, laughter under the trees, secrets shared in hushed tones, promises of change whispered into the night. But now, the weight of the past felt heavy between them. Lena, Marcus said, attempting to mask his surprise. What are you doing here? I came to show support, she replied, voice firm, but Marcus caught the tremor. She was not just there for show. As an activist, she'd been involved in protests, fighting for change head-on. He wondered if this confrontation could somehow become part of that battle. Another sharp look passed between the officer and Lena, and Marcus felt the tension radiating from them, a current that tightened the air around him. The officer shifted, visibly unsettled by her presence. This isn't the time or place, he said, this time edging back toward authority. Lena took a deep breath, not backing down, her eyes blazing. No. This is exactly the time and place. Look at them. She gestured to the boys standing beside Marcus, their faces eager but still wrapped in apprehension. They've fought for a chance just to be heard, to share their stories. The moments that followed felt incredibly fragile. The officer teetered between his duty and this new wave of emotion. It's a tough world out there, he said, though his voice held less conviction. You think you can change systemic problems with words? Words are the first step. Lena shot back, her voice unwavering. Staying silent won't save anyone. Open your eyes, they're living through a nightmare, just like I did. You know this. The officer hesitated, eyes darting to the group of boys. They stood there, shadows of vulnerability mixed with budding rebellion. Marcus could feel their heartbeats sync with his, a quiet chorus of hope pulsing through the space between breaths. Then, just like that, a flicker of understanding crossed the officer's face, a crack in the rigid facade he had maintained. I was just trying to do my job, he said finally, almost as if he were speaking to himself as much as the group. Your job can be more than just enforcing the rules. It can be building trust. Protecting the futures you're sworn to serve, Lena insisted, her voice carrying gravity. The officer shifted his weight, Marcus read the frustration and fear etched in his brow. This felt monumental, yet precariously balanced on a knife's edge. The boys shifted, casting glances at Marcus, awaiting some sign, some assurance. What were they all risking? How firmly could they stand in this moment of potential change? Lena's right, Marcus spoke up, urgency rising to meet the officer's gaze. We need to talk. Not just here tonight but moving forward. We need people like you who actually listen. Energy buzzed in the air, and for the first time, hope glimmered amongst the uncertainty. It was as if the world had suddenly cracked open just a little wider, inviting possibility. But then, the crackling sound of approaching footsteps broke the moment. Another squad car pulled up around the corner, sirens still cutting through the tension like a knife. The officer stiffened, shifting back into his role as the harbinger of law. "They can't see this," he whispered urgently, eyes darting over the scene. "Whatever happens next, it needs to be quick." Marcus felt the familiar swell of anxiety but also a newfound determination. With Lena beside him, they had to act. The boys had sacrificed so much to reach this point, they couldn't let fear steal this chance away. "All right," Marcus said, turning to the group. "We need to come together and be ready because the next few minutes could change everything." As they formed a wider circle together, each one feeding off the hope held in their heartbeats, there was a collective understanding. This was only the beginning. But who was coming next? Would they be friend or foe? The uncertainty loomed large, threatening to overshadow everything they had built, and Marcus could only hold his breath, waiting for whatever would burst through the shadows. The sirens faded into the distance, replaced by the heartbeat of all gathered there. Marcus felt the tension shift again. The boys stood around him, still held by their risk-taking energy, and Lena's fiery passion ignited another level of possibility. They shared a purpose now, a unique bond forged through determination and vulnerability. "Listen," Marcus said, looking at each young man, "what we started tonight has to carry on. The moment we take responsibility, it begins with us. We must keep talking, keep listening, and create a ripple effect across our community." Lena nodded vigorously. "The next step is to set up our first forum, a safe space for everyone to share their stories, and for us to hear each other's truths, to heal." But Marcus couldn't ignore the lingering doubt. What about the police? The fear of retaliation? Their expectations? "They can't dictate who we are," Lena replied firmly. "Tonight we're showing that by standing together, we are reclaiming our space." The boys exchanged glances, bubbling with newfound momentum. The original hesitancy seemed to dissolve as determination washed over them like morning light breaking on a new day. "Let us plan," Tommy said, stepping forward. "I'll round up more friends and we can make this a bigger event. We need to build allies, people who believe in change." With every sentence spoken, the energy skyrocketed, giving Marcus hope. They were transforming fear into action, building a plan that could forge a pathway to solidarity and progress. "I'll be there too," one boy from the group said, his voice steady and resolute. "No more staying quiet." His peers nodded in agreement, a chorus of new conviction forming in the air. Each young person began to input ideas, brainstorming on logistics, venues, and how to reach more people. A tapestry of voices weaved together, as vulnerability morphed into strength. The relationship between fear and hope transformed, creating something new, vibrant, and alive. As the minutes ticked by, the circle they formed grew warmer, bathed in the glow of shared purpose. In that moment, they understood each other. They may still face challenges ahead, but resilience lived in each heartbeat surrounding Marcus. "And don't forget," Marcus added, "we must keep talking to building bridges with the officers when we have our forum. They might surprise us." A round of nods spread through the group. Lena squeezed Marcus's arm, gratitude shining in her eyes. Together they were crafting something beautiful out of chaos, shaping a narrative firmly rooted in potential. But just then, the clang of a gate echoed nearby. Officers were returning at a distance. Anxiety gripped Marcus again as dread settled in. Were they here to disrupt what they had started? But instead of backing down, he felt a swell of courage rise within him. "We need to do this. We're standing up not just for ourselves but for all who feel unheard. If they come, we meet them with transparency." And as the figures of law enforcement moved closer, Marcus squared his shoulders, grounding himself in the spirit of solidarity he felt around him, the strength forged in communion. He stepped out in front, ready to uphold this newfound foundation of courage. "We're working towards change," Marcus called out, voice steady. "Come join us. We can all do better." The officer paused, scanning the scene. The look in his eyes softened, as if sensing the gravity of the collective heartbeat before him. You all understand the seriousness of this situation?" he asked, though there was a gentleness woven into his words. "Yes." Someone from the group shouted back, courage washing over them like tide, as they took a step closer, unified as one. Marcus could feel the shift in the energy, the air thick with hope. "We want change not just for us, but for generations who deserve better. We can work together." And in that moment, through the hazy shadows of the night, they witnessed something incredible, an opening, a chance to bridge the divide. The police officer nodded slowly, like a seed of understanding took root. "I'm listening," the officer replied, cautiously stepping forward. "But you need to work with us too. We must re-establish trust, and it starts here, with each of you." With that, Marcus felt something monumental turn in the air, a potential for partnership that might unexpectedly pave the path toward evolution. Hope was now simmering in the air, and he felt inspired in a way he hadn't before. Together, they shared their values, their stories, fears, and aspirations. Momentum swelled as both sides began to truly listen to one another. The night was still young, and with every word spoken, barriers began to crumble. And with that, they spun the narrative of their community, weaving a powerful tapestry that spoke of resilience, understanding, and love, a place where they could raise their families in safety, connected to each other. They embraced the promise that tomorrow could shine a little brighter, driven by the hope and unity they had birthed from the ashes of silence. As Marcus looked at the youth standing beside him, he felt a profound shift in his heart. This was the beginning of a movement not just for his community, but as an inspiration for others. A true testament to the power of speaking out against hate. And in that moment of transformation, with hands joined and voices set to the future, he knew they were just getting started. Now is your moment of action. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and ignite change. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm and spread this message of unity. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. I want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformation and be a part of this movement. Don't wait not even one more second to uplift your community.